Congressional Capitals 13, the French Arms Tavern in Trenton, New Jersey. President Richard Henry Lee, John Jay, and the end of the two-capital experiment. In November 1784, the United States in Congress assembled, convened not in Philadelphia or Annapolis, but in Trenton, New Jersey, inside the French Arms Tavern, a stately three-story brick inn on King and 2nd Streets. Renovated that autumn, its long chamber was carpeted in green cloth and furnished with 13 tables and 48 Windsor chairs. Here Congress debated a question that would determine a nation's future: where the permanent seat of government should be, and whether America's leaders would remain forever itinerant or at last anchor their authority in one newly constructed federal district. After mutinous U.S. troops drove the Confederation Congress from Philadelphia in 1783, President Elias Boudinot's delegates, meeting at Princeton, sought a sectional compromise. They voted to establish two federal districts, one near the Falls of the Delaware for the north, and one near Georgetown on the Potomac for the south. Until both were built, the Confederation Congress agreed to alternate sessions between Trenton and Annapolis. It was an experiment in balance, yet within a year, the plan would collapse under its own impracticality at the behest of former Continental Congress President John Jay. By law, the 5th United States in Congress assembled was to meet at Trenton on November 1, 1784, but only 5 states appeared, too few for a quorum. For nearly a month, the Confederation drifted leaderless until on November 30th, enough delegates arrived to open the 5th session. The delegates immediately chose Richard Henry Lee of Virginia as the 6th President of the United States in Congress assembled. Lee was a revolutionary patriarch, the man who in 1776 moved that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states. A signer of both the Declaration of Independence and the Articles of Confederation, he embodied continuity with America's founding generation. Lee's election rested on 3 foundations. First, the informal custom of rotating the presidency between North and South. Thomas Mifflin of Pennsylvania had just completed his term. Second, Lee's revolutionary prestige and seniority gave Congress a cohesion at a time of dishevelment. Third, his long record as an anti-centrist reassured Southern and Mid-Atlantic delegates who feared that Northern commercial power and an increasing assertive Congress might come to dominate the states. Under Lee's presidency, Congress finally settled into the French Arms Tavern, ready to confront the Confederation's most pressing dilemma: how and where to seat the national government in a permanent federal district. The groundwork for this debate had been laid a year earlier. In November 1783, Congress appointed Elbridge Gerry, Richard Peters, Abraham Clark, William Ellery, and George Read to survey the lands near the Falls of the Delaware for a proposed federal city. They were assisted by Captain Thomas Hutchins, the geographer to the United States, the nation's first official mapmaker. Hutchins reported from Annapolis, "You will receive herewith plans of the ground below and above the Falls of the Delaware. The Pennsylvania side is very high, airy, and healthy, with clay for bricks and limestone for building, springs of good water. The land on the Jersey side also affords a delightful prospect. Materials may easily be conveyed by water." The committee's report identified 2 districts, one on the New Jersey side at Lamberton, the other on the Pennsylvania side near the Falls, each about 2 or 3 square miles. They recommended that whichever state ceded land first and granted exclusive federal jurisdiction should host the capital. These documents, Hutchins' letter, his detailed survey map, and the committee report constitute the first practical blueprint for a federal district in American history, a direct forerunner of the future District of Columbia. Meanwhile, Peace Commissioner John Jay returned from Europe to learn he had been elected Secretary for Foreign Affairs without his consent. Jay notified Secretary Charles Thompson that he declined the appointment, writing, "As I have a family, it is necessary my residence should be stationary, and I think it both reasonable and important that my subordinates should be of my own appointment." Jay's insistence on stability resonated with President Lee and many delegates who had grown weary of an executive government without a fixed seat. On December 6, Virginia delegate James Monroe wrote to James Madison that Jay, now a New York delegate to Congress, would accept the Foreign Secretary position only if Congress established itself at any one place. 2 weeks later, on December the 20th, David Howe of Rhode Island, seconded by John Jay, moved to repeal the alternating capital plan and appropriate $100,000 for constructing permanent federal buildings. The measure passed by 9 states. The following day, Charles Pinckney and John Jay proposed, and Congress agreed, that it should choose a single location to remain in until suitable public buildings could be constructed in the new federal town. 2 days later, on December 23rd, Congress resumed debate on the ordinance to establish a permanent federal district on the banks of the Delaware near Trenton. Southern delegates, led by James Monroe, sought to relocate the site southward to Georgetown, but their motion failed by a vote of 8 states to 1. Proposals to place the capital instead at Newport, Philadelphia, or New York likewise fell short. In the end, Congress passed the ordinance fixing the location near Trenton and directed 3 commissioners to select land not more than 8 miles above or below the lower falls of the Delaware. Finally, on that same day, to maintain continuity, Congress chose neither Georgetown or Annapolis as its temporary seat during the federal district's construction. It chose New York on a motion that was seconded by the city's strongest advocate, John Jay. 2 days earlier, on December the 21st, just after Congress abandoned the rotating capital scheme, Justice Isaac Smith of New Jersey Supreme Court swore in John Jay as the second United States Secretary for Foreign Affairs. The following day, on the 22nd, Jay wrote both the French and Dutch ministers that, having accepted the place of Secretary for Foreign Affairs, it becomes my duty to inform you that Congress will adjourn tomorrow to meet at the city of New York on Tuesday, the 11th day of January next. Thus, a day before Congress formally enacted the ordinance establishing both the permanent federal district near Trenton and the temporary seat in New York City, Jay had already informed America's foreign envoys where and when the nation's government would next convene. Congress did not conclude its business on December 23rd. Debate over the capital ordinance continued, forcing the delegates to reconvene for its final session on Christmas Eve. On December 24th, Congress certified the appointments of James Monroe, George Reed, William Grayson, Isaac Smith, and William Patterson as judges to hear the Massachusetts-New York land dispute under Article 9 of the Articles of Confederation. With this final procedural matter settled, the United States and Congress assembled, formally adjourned, resolving to meet at the city of New York on the 11th day of January next. The French Arms Session marked a turning point from a wandering confederation to a stationary national government. The survey plans of 1783, the deliberations of 1784, and the leadership of Richard Henry Lee and John Jay together pointed the Republic towards a path that would eventually result in the formulation of the District of Columbia, a single permanent capital for the United States.